students, I'm back with our next class. In today's class, we are going to discuss another very important topic, that is DNA versus RNA. Now, see, in Hershey and Chase's experiment, it has been proven that DNA is the genetic material in most organisms, isn't it? But even after that, there are a few organisms, mostly the virus, say the retrovirus, in which RNA acts as the genetic material. So that means both DNA and RNA has the capability to act as genetic material, right? So in that case, the question is, which one is more better a particular genetic material, or which one is going to be acting as an ideal genetic material, and why? Of course, as per evolution, we see that DNA acts as the genetic material in all types of organisms, be it the prokaryotes, be it the eukaryotes, be it the lower or be it the higher organisms. Okay, exception being the virus, that's a different issue altogether, but then mostly it is DNA, right? Why is it DNA and not RNA? That is what is our main discussion today. Now see, for any kind of material to act as genetic material, to act as an ideal genetic material, it must fulfill a few criteria, okay? And they are, first, the substance which is to be acting as the genetic material, it should be biochemically and structurally very stable. After all, it is keeping intact the hereditary information, isn't it? So at any given cost, the genetic information or hereditary information, it must not change. It should remain constant or stable throughout the life cycle, throughout the ages or physiology of an organism. Fine. Next criteria is that the structure or the substance to act as genetic material, it must be able to replicate and make a copy of itself. Of course, that would be mandatorily required if the organism has to pass on the information to the next generation or to the progeny, isn't it? Now, the third criteria would be that the substance which is to act as a genetic material, it should be able to undergo slow mutation so that it can allow variation and eventually evolution. Okay, always whenever we think about mutation, or in the last chapter when you have learned about mutation, you thought that mutation was something that's negative, isn't it? Because it brings along so many undesirable changes or undesirable traits, or which brings about so many disorders, right? But then slow mutation when occurs in a very slow rate, rather would be beneficial from evolution point of view, because that would allow speciation. Fine. And the fourth and the final criteria would be that the substance to act as genetic material must be able to express itself in the Mendelian fashion. Alright. Now all of this criteria is properly fulfilled by the DNA. But some of them are not fulfilled by the RNA. Like RNA is not stable. Structurally or biochemically, it's not stable. It mutates, but it mutates at a very fast rate. Okay? So basically, certain kind of changes in the RNA itself made DNA. Okay, that's how the DNA became much more stable, or it became much more beneficial, or it became much more suitable to be holding on to the hereditary information. Okay, so let's see what actually is the reason behind DNA stability. So see here, a molecule that can act as genetic material must be fulfilling the following criteria, which I just now told you. It should be chemically and structurally stable. It should be able to generate its replica. It should provide the scope of slow mutation. Mark here, it's slow mutation. Rapidly, if some changes happen, that would be negative. That are required for evolution, and it should be able to express itself in the form of Mendelian characters. Right? Now, DNA being more stable is preferred as genetic material finally. Why? The reasons have been marked here. See, first of all, you know very well that in Watson and Crick model of DNA, you have learned that the RNA possesses ribose sugar, and ribose sugar has a free hydroxyl in the second position, right? This free hydroxyl is replaced with a hydrogen in case of DNA. Free hydroxyls being highly reactive adds to the instability in the structure of RNA, which is not present in the DNA. So see here, free hydroxyl of RNA makes it more labile and easily degradable. Therefore, DNA is in comparison is more stable. Next, presence of thymine. In case of DNA, the nitrogenous bases which are present are purine A and G, adenine guanine, and pyrimidine would be C and T, cytosine and thymine. But in case of RNA, instead of thymine, what is present is uracil. Now, uracil has been made more stable in the DNA by methylation in this fifth position. So 5-methyl uracil itself is called thymine, which is present in DNA, and that's what again further adds stability to the structure of DNA. So see here, presence of thymine, that is 5-methyl uracil at the place of uracil, also provides additional stability to the DNA. Next, DNA being double-stranded with complementary base pairing has a self-repairing mechanism which is absent in single-stranded RNA. Now see, DNA, it is double-stranded, right? So see here, suppose this is the DNA strand 5' to 3' and 3' to 5'. And these are the nitrogenous bases present here. Okay, so there will be complementary base pairing in the next in the opposite strand, isn't it? So it would be having the sequence T, A, G, C, G, T. Now suppose if due to some kind of mutation, one error occurs in this particular part of the DNA. Say, instead of G, here gets introduced an A. If a A is introduced here, there is a mismatch base pairing happening, isn't it? This mismatch base pairing or error can be easily identified only because DNA is double-stranded. In case it would have been a single-stranded structure, can you properly recognize the errors in a prompt manner? No, right? So DNA being double-stranded and having complementary base pairing, it has a self-repair mechanism in which it can easily remove the mismatch base and it can put forward and replace it with the correct base. So this is another reason why DNA has been much more stable and in keeping up with the hereditary information. Alright, so this being said, now let us discuss a little bit regarding the RNA world. See, even if I have been telling you all about why DNA is much more preferable as a genetic material than RNA, do remember a very interesting fact that first genetic material to be evolved was RNA. Okay, the first genetic material that got evolved was RNA and not DNA. RNA at that time not only used to act as genetic material, but it used to also act as catalyst. Even today in our body, there are certain very vital reactions which are catalyzed by not protein-based enzymes, rather RNA-based enzymes called ribozymes. Like for example, in protein synthesis, the two amino acids are joined together by the help of peptide bond, isn't it? The peptide bond formation is going to be catalyzed by the enzyme peptidyl transferase. And peptidyl transferase is a ribozyme, RNA based enzyme. It's not a protein based enzyme. So likewise, there are many other important examples of ribozymes that you will be eventually getting in this chapter itself. Alright, so RNA, because it acted as a catalyst, it was highly reactive and hence it was highly unstable as well. Because it was highly unstable, of course it could not have been suitable to store the hereditary information. That's why certain modificational changes occurred in the RNA, and that's when DNA was formed. So we can say that DNA is a stable version of RNA itself. Okay. But the question is, if RNA got converted into DNA by certain structural modifications and it became much more stable, in that case what is the usage of RNA then, right? DNA is much more preferable a form. In that case, what is the reason RNA still exists? That is because, suppose this is a cell and this being the nucleus, right? Inside the nucleus there is this DNA, which is a very long and bulky structure, highly packaged and supercoiled, kept within, properly confined within the nucleus. DNA might possess the information to make proteins, but the protein making machinery is not in the nucleus, rather it is in the cytoplasm, that we call as the ribosome. So every time a protein is required in this cell, the DNA being such a enormous structure, it cannot simply be coming out of the nucleus and exposing its codes or information to the ribosome, isn't it? So that the ribosome using it would be able to make proteins. So what can be done is, in between the DNA and ribosome, we had to keep a messenger. A messenger which can be transmitting which can be doing the transmission of information, genetic information between the DNA and ribosome. And for that purpose, RNA is required. RNA is short, it is single-stranded, and easily it can bring the information from the DNA and it can bring it to the ribosome, so that using that code, the ribosome will be able to finally make proteins, right? So that's why both DNA and RNA are important. DNA being stable is good to keep the hereditary information intact, whereas RNA being single-stranded and much smaller, it is good, or it is much more better for transmission of hereditary information. Alright, understood this? So let's see here. See, RNA was the first genetic material, and there are evidences to suggest that essential life processes such as metabolism, translation, splicing, etc. evolved around RNA. RNA not only acted as genetic material but also as the catalyst. Now, RNA as catalyst was highly reactive and hence unstable, thus DNA got evolved. But both DNA and RNA are essential for the living. Why? Because DNA being stable is good for storing the hereditary information, whereas RNA is better in transmission of genetic information. Alright? So I hope all of you are clear about the entire thing related to DNA versus RNA. So in the next class, we'll start with a very important topic, that is semi-conservative DNA replication.